All right. We are back. It is Monday night. Hopefully you guys' week is off to a good start. You had a happy Father's Day. Shout out to all the fathers out there. Hopefully you enjoyed your day, got to spend some time with your family. Got a little bit of praise for the things that you do that oftentimes go unnoticed. It's important. I don't spend as much time as I would like to with my family. I've got a lot of obligations and things that I'm working on, things that are a priority for me. And oftentimes that gets in the way. So I too try to, take the time when I have it and make sure it counts. So hopefully you guys did that with your family over the weekend. Like I said, got to enjoy a little bit of time, decompress, maybe got some gifts, all the good stuff. It definitely changes your perspective on things when you have other people counting on you. That when it's all about yourself, maybe you take a little bit more risk, you're a little more careless, a little more reckless at times. If you have other people counting on you, you're the rock and you've got to perform. So shout out to the dads out there that carry it, that do a good job, and are good fathers. They're, I'm gonna say they're few and far between. There are a lot of good dads out there, but there are some not so good dads out there. So if you are making the effort, if you're doing a good job, if you're guiding your children. When I talk to my son, I didn't think I was going to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to for a second. I ask him, what my job is, and he will tell me, which is my job is to keep him safe and make sure that he can take care of himself. Notice that, those are pretty not always fun conversations to have with your child. But hopefully, that's what I view as my role. And he may or may not like me at the end of that. I'm hopeful that he does like me and that we're able to enjoy a long, wonderful relationship over our entire lives. But if he's able to execute at a high level and take care of himself and take care of other people, then I've done a good job. So that's my barometer. And hopefully he helps a lot of other people along the way. On to the fun stuff that you guys show up for, all of the macro and all the things that have happened today and over the weekend. So Sunday night, we had a big run up in the yen versus the USD, or down, however you want to look at it. The yen is depreciating very quickly against the US dollar, even with the rate moves that we saw last week from the Bank of Japan and from our own Fed here. The dollar continues to appreciate against the yen. We did see an all-time high over there in the Nikkei Monday morning, 72,500, the highest that it has ever been. We are back down a little bit today off the high over there, even though the yen continues to sit at the upper bound, 161.59. We were almost at 162 before the Bank of Japan intervened this morning early around 10 a.m. my time, so it would have been 11 Eastern. They did, sell a bunch of dollars onto the market to be able to strengthen the yen, and it really didn't do a whole lot. We're already back at close to the same levels, and that's their final time that I believe that they can intervene in the currency market here. So the only option they have left is going to be to raise interest rates to be able to strengthen their currency against the dollar. And once that starts moving aggressively in the other direction, that is when the unwind is going to happen. There are a lot of people out there saying that it's not going to happen, or that it's priced in, or that it's going to happen slowly. I don't see how that's a possibility. There is a lot of leverage built up in the system, more than people realize. And when it starts to unwind, it's not going to be a slow, gradual thing. It is going to be an aggressive move in markets across the board, as there is a global credit call. Oil is kind of dampening this right now. So unless we get another spike here, which we definitely could, we've got the US releasing sanctions on Iran. Releasing by, I mean, like, there's a moratorium. So they're not imposing the sanctions over the next 60 days here till the middle of August. because August 21st is the last day. And that means they can ship oil. That doesn't mean they're shipping oil to Japan. I know that people are going to immediately jump to that conclusion. Their largest purchaser of oil from Iran is China. And China has a long backlog, and they are willing to pay a premium to be able to get the oil out of Iran. And so I would expect that the majority of the oil that is leaving the Strait of Hormuz, if it is open, which again, there's a bunch of contradictory information out there on the internet, whether it's open or closed. If you're watching the strait itself, there's a few vessels moving through there. It's still pretty slim. But oil reserves are at not an all-time low, but the lowest we've had in about 30 or 40 years globally. I expect that when we get the EIA reports that come out on Wednesday at 10:30 Eastern, we might see some panic in markets. I'm not guaranteeing that. That's just an inkling that I have, because if global reserves are to the point where people are literally scraping the bottom of the barrel to get the oil out, we're in a bad spot. And there's a backlog. It's not like they open the Strait of Hormuz and immediately the world just gets a supply of oil again. All of that has to be shipped. It has to travel over the ocean. It will take time to get to wherever it's going. And so if the oil reserves aren't there to be able to support that period of time, I think that we could absolutely see another spike in oil. So we've got, tomorrow's Tuesday. This doesn't come out till Wednesday. We've got a whole nother day and a half really from here until we get those reports. And that could cause some issues in the market. So kind of biding our time here until that happens. Could Japan intervene in the market and raise interest rates tomorrow? Sure. But without their back against the wall, with high inflation in their economy and oil continue to trend down, it may take a few days here. And I do anticipate that things could escalate quickly. I posted over there on Twitter today, oftentimes things will feel like they're grinding against the bottom. It's never going to happen. You're beating your head against the wall. And then all of a sudden, it all works out. Things change very quickly. All of that consistent action that you took over an extended period of time does pay off. All of it counts, no matter what you're doing. And this extended timeline here, from the end of last year into where we are now this year through the middle of the year, I did not anticipate. You guys know that. I thought that things could happen a little bit quicker, but I will be vindicated. Things are going to escalate and things are going to move. And the paradigm that we exist in for the financial system is going to shift. So you guys know my thesis on that if you watch often enough. The other thing interesting today, before we jump into the questions here, and again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the hype button over there on YouTube. If you do feel so inclined. If you don't like it, don't share it, don't like it, none of that stuff. But it does help the algorithm if you would be so kind. So on to the other thing before we jump into the questions. Quantum. I don't know if you guys saw the post from the White House today, very extended, very long post with nothing in it until the very bottom where they talk about Q and quantum. Interesting choice of vernacular. So Trump did sign a bill in today, an executive order that supports the advancement in quantum here in the US through some funding. He would also like to see quantum computing at scale by 2028. Less than 2 years away. We've been talking about quantum for a long time. It's been, I say we, I've touched on it a few times in the past, but it's going to become much, much more important. Its ability to crack codes and the encryptions in blockchain and other ways that people currently secure data. It's a big deal. So, just be on the watch out, looking out for all of that as things progress here. I will likely be CZ. I watched an interview from him the other day. He doesn't think that there's implications for Bitcoin with quantum. I tend to disagree with that. And again, he's had a lot more success than I have, and he's very intelligent. So, maybe he's right. There's a lot of people, again, I hold in high regard that I don't necessarily agree with on everything. I I do, he talked about not exiting crypto. You don't exit crypto. I tend to, agree with that point. But all that being said, we'll have to see how things play out, but they are definitely progressing quickly now that we have an administration that's behind it. This person says quantum will break Bitcoin. I mean, it's a SHA-256 encryption. So there's supercomputers today that could break that encryption. Quantum could definitely do it. I've got a couple super chats here that I will go ahead and run down, and then we'll jump into the ones from tonight. So Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry I missed some of your super chats last week. He says, super chat community pest. What was this? That's from DFW Mike. I don't see the one from Rick Johnson. Maybe this is his super chat. Super chat community pest and nuance extraordinary. I like it. He says, I will go to where
he didn't submit them. Listen, they need to know that I can't look up their super chat.
Oh, okay. So
if
if
they don't tell me what it is or send me a screenshot, I don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, so just for those that do email in, I have not been specific on that. Unfortunately, my wife and team cannot go back in the chat and find the super chat for you. So
I'm not looking at 2 hours worth of chat to find your super chat, Rick.
If you could copy paste it in there, I will read it. But again, apologize for missing him last week. Just want to give you a shout out. He is a longtime listener and always has some interesting things to say. So appreciate you, Rick. The other one we got from DFW Mike, he says, evening, sir. Flowers to Tish. She is treating us with white gloves. Huge thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Honest Aim for their program and the care, love, and assistance they are providing in the mastermind. Thank you, man. Yeah, we've got some really talented and good-hearted people that work with the corporation. Tish is one of our advisors. She's here in Texas with me. And so it's nice to have somebody local to be able to speak with and talk to. And she's always nice enough to come meet with our clients face-to-face and have interactions so that they can feel comfortable and ask any questions that they need to. And then, yeah, shout out to Honest Aim and Mrs. Honest Aim. They do a lot for the community over there in the mastermind. They've put together a full program for building out mission statement, core values, your entire family constitution, and what that looks like so that everybody knows where they're headed and they construct that on the front end before you continue to grow your estate after you have the base of your estate structured for your digital assets. So thank you so much for the super chat and the kind words. We'll go ahead and dive into it here. We got wager rewards. BIS regulatory framework contradicts theory of XRP classified as a tier one asset. Tier one must consist of common equity, retained earnings, cash reserves, and high-grade government bonds. Defined framework gives no pathway for unbacked XRP to become tier one collateral. I mean, that's a fair... My definition and the definition of the BIS, if something is riskless, then it could be considered tier one. So would gold, which is also a tier one asset designated by the BIS in 2019, meet the criteria that you've listed? So let's run back through it again. It says must consist of common equity. Well, if gold meets that qualification, so would XRP. Retained earnings. So gold doesn't meet that, XRP doesn't meet that. Cash reserves, gold doesn't meet that, XRP doesn't meet that. And high-grade government bonds. I mean, Japan's backing some of their bonds with XRP. So does it meet that criteria under that circumstance? I would say that the only one of those that gold might meet, which has been designated a tier one asset, would be common equity. Basically, where everybody agrees that it is a premium collateral and all hold it, right? That would be my definition of common equity. So again, under your definition, it's provided if you don't believe XRP would qualify, then gold wouldn't either. And I'm not sure how they were able to list that as a tier one asset in 2019. So that'd be my rebuttal. I would have to go do some research to check out the common equity piece. But if gold were to qualify under common equity, very confident that XRP would as well. Soil regen, they say your domino theory does not call for it, but assume clarity does get passed by both chambers and signed by the president by early July. Could you explain what it will take to make this law go into effect? If it were to go through all of the measures that you just laid out there, it would be law. It would be congressional law, and it would be signed into law by our president, Mr. Trump. So at that point, it would be effectuated. It could still pass in July. I would love this. I would love nothing more than to see the Clarity Act passed by July 4th or on July 4th. I think that would be an exceptional way to ring in that tremendous occasion of our 250th anniversary this year. How likely is that? Looking very unlikely at this point. We've got a lot of people advocating that there is no date for vote, even for the Senate up to this point. And the filibuster, which you would need to get another 7 to 9 Democrats on your side in order to be able to get the filibuster through, and then be able to have a full vote in the Senate, and then get that done. And then it would have to go back to the House in order for them to get it voted on and done. And only then it would then go to the president's desk for signature. That normally takes a long time to occur. Could it happen in, what do we got here, 8, 9, 13 days? It's possible. Highly unlikely. I'm still 95.5 that we get it passed before they take recess in August. Again, caveat being, if we do have an extraordinary circumstance that plays out or a catalyst that requires them to act very quickly, I do think they could come together and get something done in short order. So would the reverse carry trade and a global systemic risk qualify as that type of event? Could possibly do that. Do we look like we're on the precipice of that here with the current macro indicators? I would say so. So again, I believe that XRP will appreciate before the Clarity Act. That is my conviction. How far before the Clarity Act's passed? A day, a week, a month? I don't know the answer to that one. But I will continue to double down that it will happen prior to Clarity Act being passed. Weird Kids TV. He says, you say we'll see price appreciation soon, but Bersan and Vendel didn't believe that watching their channel and the podcast. They hinted we are close, but it's going to take more time. Opinion. I think that they're both extremely intelligent. They speak with a lot of people that I've also had the pleasure of speaking with, and many other people that I haven't been able to have a conversation with. So again, predicated on your background and conversations that you've had and other experiences, you're going to come to different conclusions about things. I also think that a lot of people have had a lot of hope for certain dates, and it's a lot easier to just be ambiguous about that and have a longer time horizon, or your lesser price predictions. And they both believe in high prices as well. They just believe it will take longer. And I think that's pretty much true of everybody out there. So we're all getting to the same spot. And that's the deal for me. I'm like, why are we going to argue over semantics in the short term on how we get there? We all win when we do. We know that that's the inevitable outcome. Which path do we take to get there doesn't necessarily matter. However, I tend to believe things are going to happen sooner than later. The 28th of this month, we have Swift going live with instant settlement. And then we also have the DTCC moving to 24/5. settlement of the back end of the stock market. Had they gone 23.5, I could see that hour delay each night, allowing them to reconcile, post trading and move to T0 that way. But since it's 24.5, I don't know what the downtime is going to be. In my mind, you would need instant settlement reconciliation on the back end of the stock market to be able to support that type of trading with no downtime. Predicated on the fact that I believe XRP will be utilized for those transactions, and knowing that there's not enough liquidity currently in XRP in order to be able to support those initiatives, one could determine that we would need a substantially higher price by that date, which is 6 days from now. I know that sounds crazy. And could they kick the can? Absolutely. Could it take longer? Absolutely. Are other people probably right? Absolutely. But I think there's a significant chance. I'm not going to give a percentage because you guys don't like that, and it will be a bunch of blowback. And the same reason that a lot of the other people won't even touch this stuff. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about this month here in June. I feel like things are right on the precipice of cracking here, and they're going to need a solution. And that might just happen to line up with the dates that they're going to be needing that solution here in short order. Wager rewards again. He says, BG's tattoo, Brad Garlinghouse, if you didn't know. Brad Garlinghouse's tattoo, you talk about it, says 7/13/2023, not 26. All the planets aligned, so Ripple could be victorious in the SEC lawsuit. As much as I love a sign, I don't think it's a future event. History doesn't always repeat, but it often rhymes. So we'll see. That is the day that they're supposed to go live with tokenization of the different exchange platforms here in the US, NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, and many others. Will be rolling out their tokenized stocks on that date. And I've mentioned before, reconciliation and settlement of the back end of the stock market could be on a different network than where they're tokenizing all of the assets. We already know that Ondo settles their treasuries on the XRPL, their tokenized treasuries. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched, since they're partnered with the exchange that they're partnered with, that they would also be settling those stocks through XRP and the XRPL. And then you've got Securitize and the others. Robinhood has their own platform. Just have to see how things play out here in the next couple weeks. I'm feeling good about it, though. We got Triz Tank Code. I'm going to butcher that. I'm not going to try. Tristan Cohort. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Long day. He says, if 0.5% is 0.5% a reasonable TAMP fee for an RIA to charge on less than $500,000 in assets? Advice for new Series 65 advisor. Also, have you tried Retuderide? Thank you for a supplement question. TAMPs. So for those who don't know what a TAMP is, it is a turnkey asset management platform. That's what it stands for. Many RIAs that are startups or not part of a bigger conglomerate like a Schwab or Fidelity utilize TAMPs. It reduces their costs. It allows them to get access to models. It streamlines billing and reporting on that for their clients. And for those services, a TAMP will charge an AUM fee. So, basically a percentage of the percentage that the RIA or the registered investment advisor will charge their clients. Most RIAs are charging 2% on assets that they manage. Sometimes it's less than that. If you're holding more assets with them, then they will, reduce that cost. But that is pretty normal thing. On the Retuderide, Retuderide, however you want to say it, Retitutide. My business partner Max says it is goated, greatest of all time. So there are many GLP-1s. This one in particular helps retain muscle tissue while dampening your hunger or your ghrelin response. So I think it's a good tool. Again, supplementation, all this stuff is a tool to be able to help you achieve goals. We don't know the long-term side effects of these GLP-1s. They are new to the market in the last year, really. They've been used in the past in, smaller capacity, but they've really been commercialized out to the public, and they've helped a lot of people reduce their BMI. Reducing BMI is not always good. That was kind of a metric that they used in the 70s. My BMI says that I am morbidly obese. I'm 230 pounds, about 6 foot. My BMI calculator says I should weigh like 175. I haven't weighed 175 since I was in high school. But I'm also, I don't know, 12% body fat, 13% body fat at 230. So a lot of muscle tissue there. But all that said, weight is rough on your organs. It's harder on your heart to pump blood to all the muscle tissue. The heavier you are, the more difficult it is for your kidneys to filter the blood, and your liver, and all of the other organs that you have. People that are smaller tend to live longer, just like smaller dogs live longer than big dogs, like a Great Dane. So if you are utilizing rituximab in order to be able to reduce your overall weight for longevity while retaining muscle tissue, I think that it is a good tool for that use case. But again, yet to be seen the long-term side effects of these GLP-1s. I've not tried it personally. I utilize old school bodybuilding pharmacology to get in shape if I need to. We get Diva Delights. They say, Mr. Muscles and the Tea Lady. The DTCC, you say, starting T+0 on the 28th. What about the soft launch on the 14th of July? Difference between them, soft launch isn't T+1 in July. So I think I just went through this in pretty great detail, but just to kind of surface level again, the 28th of this month, they will be moving to 24/5 trading. So what does that mean? Stocks will be trading all day, every day, except for the weekends. So originally they were going to go 23/5, and that hour that they were going to have down, they could utilize that for reconciliation and back-end settlement if they were going to settle same day in a batch deal. They don't have that time if they move to 24/5. So in my mind, and again, this is just I'm making assumptions here, okay? So guilty if you believe I'm making assumptions. These are educated assumptions. Without that hour of downtime, I speculate that they would have to be settling real time the whole time in order to be able to facilitate an actual 24/5 trading. And that is what I believe will be going live on the 28th, which is the T+0 you discussed. The July 14th is the exchanges themselves. So there's over 16 different exchanges that sell and trade stocks. New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ are the two largest ones. And you have brokers that actually are broker dealers, and they sell those, and you deal with those broker dealers a lot of the time. Robinhood, Webull, eToro, E-Trade, all of those different platforms, Schwab, Fidelity, right? The exchanges will settle with the clearinghouses through the DTCC. And the DTCC settles up T+1 right now. So the next day they will settle those trades. The clearinghouses front all of that money. And then they hope to get paid the next day for the full amount. There's also not a full accounting mechanism across all of these exchanges in the DTCC, which is composed of 6 clearinghouses. That's why we had the issues in GameStop and AMC when they oversold the stock, because trading does not occur real time. And there is no blockchain for a full accounting mechanism across all the stocks that are issued. So this implementation will solve all of those things. It will also allow people to buy fractionalized shares of stock, which will push up the value of stocks even more. And it will also not require companies, and I guess this isn't a requirement, but many of them do it. They will do a stock split. So once their price of one single share becomes untenable for the average person, they will issue however many shares it takes to get it back down to a reasonable price, a couple $100 for most people is kind of on the high end of what they can afford for one share of a corporation. So all those things. And then you've got, I don't know if you guys listened to Mike Higgins. He was on another podcast. Shout out to Mike for allowing me to interview him, I think, first of any of the other people that he went out there to. If you want to go check that out on the channel, it is a video that we have from 3 or 4 months ago. He's with Ripple Prime, what used to be Hidden Road. And he talked about the cross-margining and settlement of currencies in the FX market on a recent podcast with XRP sitting at the center of those exchanges. So very interesting to hear him talk about that and all the things that they're working on and implementing over there at Ripple Prime. So again, listen to what people say. If they're nice enough to come on a podcast and tell you what's going on. William Kilgore, my man, he says, Jake, thanks for all that you do. We really appreciate you. But where do you get the idea that XRP would be named a tier 1 asset by the second quarter? Time is getting thin. Good luck, bro. Appreciate you, dude. There was a BIS tweet and some other information put out early or late Q1. I believe it was late Q1, sometime in late March, where they talked about that they were going to designate Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and XRP. What they were going to, basically give them as status for the banks and their collateral and how they were going to be designated here in Q2 of 2026. So we are down to the wire here, as you've stated. We only have 9 days left here in the month. I have to see if they hold true to it and what they end up designating XRP. I'm pretty sure it's going to be tier 1 collateral. And just circling back on that, prior to that ever being announced, I've talked about XRP being tier 1 collateral for 2 or 3 years. I remember talking about that on Spaces on Twitter in 2022. So it's really been longer than that. And again, not saying I'm prophetic in any capacity. It just has always made sense to me if it was going to settle the derivatives market and be used as collateral in that capacity, that would have to be tier 1 collateral designated by the BIS. This gentleman, howdy, good to see you, sir. He says, Jake, you've disappointed us all. You said that Swift and the DTCC need to be T+0 the 28th, and that's a lie. Okay, Smoke confirmed that T+0 won't be activated the 28th. He says T+0 is for the real-time commercial confirmation messaging. Settlement will continue T+1 confirmed by the DTCC on their website. Late. Our last hope is July 13th. I don't think so, my man. Again, what a lot of people are missing in that same paperwork where they talked about the batch payments and still settling T+1, they were going to go forward with 23.5, not 24.5, 23.5. That was the initial outlay of what they were going to do. They have now stated that they're going to come out with 24.5 on the 28th. So again, I kind of went over the whole thing earlier in the show, but they're not going to have time to reconcile at the end of the day in one batch payment that might take more than an hour to settle all those things. They're going to need real-time settlement in order to be able to facilitate 24/5 trading. So I have not lied to anyone. Again, like I stated before, these are educated guesses that I am making based on the circumstances and information that I have. So if you need to read it, and look, like a lot of people, they need to see it. They need to hold it in their hand. It needs to be tangible for them to believe it. And I get that. I really do. I think it's difficult in this day and age to really trust much because there is so much misinformation that's out there. And that's why, again, I encourage people to do exactly what you're doing. Listen to other people, think critically through things, come to your own conclusions. So could it take longer, which I have stated multiple times? Could they cook the can? Is it something different than I think? That's all possible. I am not the end all be all, like I've stated before. I come on here and give you guys my opinion on things, and this is a good time for my disclaimer, which is This is for educational and entertainment purposes. It's not investment advice. You should always consult with a financial professional before making any investment decisions. And any opinions I share here are my opinions, not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. So coming at me a little hard on this one, which I will take it. But I would say, I don't want to go down that road. I try to think critically through things and then put things together and then give you guys analogies or simple ways to be able to understand things and explain it to you, versus other people just, I don't want to say regurgitating, reading information and then putting that out, which Smoke is very good at. He does a fantastic job. And again, I think him and I both align on where we're headed. I don't think it really matters how we get there. Yes. Oh. Danny Caribbean. Hey, that sounds nice. He says, Jake Boss, mastermind here. Awesome dude. Holding 30K XRP. Since price appreciation hits this week, what price target should I move it into custody with DWP? Can we arrange 25% LTV? Thanks for helping us help others in God's glory. Thank you, man. Thank you for the kind words. I look forward to working with you here in the very near future. What price point? Well, that's up to you. I don't know what you feel comfortable with, to be honest with you. A lot of people, once they have over 6-7 figures in crypto, they probably want at least a decent portion of that in institutional custody. Most of our clients do hold their assets across a couple different avenues. They might have some on an exchange or a brokerage. They probably have some with us to be able to participate in products and do other things. That's their long-term bag that they don't want to make sure that it's safe, segregated, insured, bankruptcy remote, all the fun stuff. And then they may have some in a cold wallet that they also still hold. So none of those are wrong. We support people, and diversifying their holdings across different avenues that might benefit them and whatever their long-term goals are. So, and we can do a 25% LTV loan. I'm hopeful that after the BIS does designate XRP a tier 1 asset, the interest rates come down substantially. And then, I think the LTV that you mentioned here, 25%, is very responsible. I think that's a great level to be at for a lot of people, and is probably a better option than many people are currently doing in the market. He is the mastermind, and again, I do want to mention this for you guys. I haven't touched on it tonight, but if you want to check that out, if you want to join the mastermind, we would love to have you over there. On the other side of $10 XRP, it is invite only and much more expensive. So if you want to lock it in, you want to make sure that you're part of the group, or at least try it out before that happens, you can go to beyondbroke.com and use code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar. Get you the first month for $2 there in Social or Carbon One. You can go check that out. And again, cancel at any time, month to month. But we have over 17,000 people there that continue to hang out in the mastermind because of the value they're receiving. So, Asia, she says, "Hey Jake, love the new logo. You need to sell us some swag." I don't think we'll ever do swag. And I mean, there's Rolls Royce and there's, Ferrari, and there are some high-end luxury brands that do swag. And I'm sure Fidelity and Schwab and a few others do. The amount of resources, time, expense, inventory, and all of that to do swag is not worth the additional revenue that it would generate. We definitely would do stuff and give it away. We've already done that in the past. So if you're talking about that, if you're a client of DAG, I'm sure that we will have swag that we give away to clients. But as far as like selling stuff, not our MO. But thank you for the compliments on the new logo. We're going through a full rebrand that will be rolled out to you guys here in the not too distant future. We got Professor Fabulous Bottle. They say, hey there, please explain how private permission and enterprise ledgers differ from public ledgers and why anyone would adopt one over the other. Thank you. This is a good question. This is well informed. Thank you for that. So public blockchains are accessible by anybody. Anybody can participate, which is great. They're open source, they're decentralized, they're democratizing access to things. Anybody can download a MetaMask wallet. And I don't know if you even have to go through KYC, KYB to be able to do that still. Institutions aren't going to adopt that type of framework. They need to verify credentials in order for people to, they just want to know who they're operating with. They want to understand the risks associated with the people participating in whatever marketplace or products they're offering. They want to make sure that they're suitable, which is, you know, one of the guidelines by the SEC for any investment company. You have to make sure that there's suitability for those that are participating, whatever product solutions you've brought to market. So in order to be able to do that, you need credentials, you need KYB, AML, OFAC, BIS, all the other stuff that's required, so that you know who is participating and that they're not a malicious actor or on a sanctions list or, you know, blacklisted for whatever other reason. You know, politically exposed or they've committed certain crimes. You need that information. And then separate of that, depending on your net worth and what qualifications you have here in the US and abroad, there's other constraints around that. You can be an accredited investor, you could be a qualified purchaser, you can also be an AP. An accredited purchaser. Is it accredited purchaser? I don't think that one's right. AP is over 100 million. So in order to be able to participate in certain marketplaces, ideally, you would need private permissioned ecosystems that required certain credentials in order for anybody to even be able to participate in there. They would have to qualify. And then you wouldn't have to vet everybody and deal with all of that. They could just share a hash for their digital identity. You'd be able to hold the records of account that were required for them on file for whatever period of time was required for compliance. And then they're able to get access to participate in that ecosystem. But it's also part of a larger network to be able to settle publicly and source liquidity for that settlement. That would be the ideal scenario for enterprises and institutions to adopt something. And that's why we have so many of those amendments that have been proposed and accepted on the XRPL over the last year, is for institutional adoption and enterprise adoption at scale here in 2026. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. But earlier this year at XRP Community Day, Monica Long, when she was asked about XRP in 2026, she said that XRP will be adopted at scale, institutionally. Institutional adoption at scale were her exact words here in 2026. And for that to happen, it's got to be a much higher price. Ray Johnson, there he is. He says, Mr. Roids, I am a super chat community pest and nuisance extraordinaire, but you missed me. But you'd miss me if the doctor took me away in this TARDIS. Not sure if that's your car or what your TARDIS is, Rick. Richard. Hope you're well, dude. Hope you had a happy Father's Day. Ace Ventura, pet detective. Gotta love it. He says, both my parents don't have anything set up for when they pass. I want to help them get it set up. They have houses and vehicles and 401ks. Suggestions. So the 401ks will have beneficiaries on those accounts. You're going to be okay there, but there will still be reports if you go through probate of what you received. Ideally, they at least set up a living trust, and that can be in their state. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but that's at least going to mitigate the probate piece of it. And they're also going to be able to put their wishes in there and make sure, you know, whoever the executor or trustee on that trust is will be able to dole out the items as they have written in the trust. They are going to have to move or assign the assets to that trust. So make sure that all that documentation is done correctly. I would work with an estate attorney or tax attorney to be able to get that set up correctly. I would skimp on that. It's not worth the duress or fighting or other problems that it can cause your family. I don't know if you have siblings or not. People get weird when there's money. They will sacrifice relationships that you never thought they would sacrifice, and fight over things. So if everything is lined up and everybody knows what they're going to get, and that's all structured in a trust, and they've had conversations before they've passed away on why they are doling it out the way that they are, everybody's aware of what they're supposed to get, and it's listed there, and they will get those things, and it won't have to go through probate. So homes and cars and other things, here in Texas, if that amount exceeds $75,000, you're going to have to go through probate, and that's all going to be documented in public court. And then it's publicly listed what you got, what your name is, all that stuff. So highly recommend, at a bare minimum, living trust, so that you can help them navigate that situation. And again, I hope they live long, prosperous lives, and that's not anytime soon. T. Nicole, they say, the great man. What's up? Is the partnership between Swift and Lena a threat to XRP's global cross-border payment adoption plans? And also, if if Ripple get FedMaster account approval, is this big news for XRP? Love you, bro. Appreciate you. All right. So a couple different questions here. The original one, the blockchain that Swift has created, based on my understanding, is more of a messaging blockchain. It's not for the settlement component. I think that there will be multiple layers that Swift utilizes in order to be able to facilitate real-time settlement for the transactions that move over that network. They are currently just a messaging system. They've adopted ISO 20022 and standardized the messaging across all of the counterparties that interact with them. They finalized that in November of last year, and they've been running that for 8 months now. So they could be doing that on blockchain, but the settlement component's not there, and that's where XRP comes in. And that I don't know that Ripple will get that. You know, even Brad Garlinghouse has stated that he thinks that 14% of the Swift market will be on Ripple's side here in 2028 to 2030, somewhere in there. I think that Corda will likely be who they partner with to be able to facilitate those transactions, and that will still settle through XRP. In my opinion, there's a lot of other people that have different opinions than me out there, but I don't think any of them have ever worked with R3. So again, take it with a grain of salt. Separate to that, the FedMaster account, Ripple does need that. They are a bank. They've applied for it. They are still within the window to be able to receive that. It should be a full FedMaster account for them. It won't be a skinny one because they do have the banking charter and they are regulated by the OCC. So I don't know if they're still in a probationary period for that. There were 5 now bank charters that were issued by the OCC for crypto companies: Paxos, Fidelity, Ripple, and Circle. And then there's one more. I think it was Anchorage or Kraken that also got it. But yeah, would be a big deal for them and their ability to facilitate, you know, all the payments that they're looking to facilitate when they get that license. Chase Knows says, thoughts on the White House quantum posting today? I talked about that in the opening. I appreciate the super chat. Looks like things are speeding up. For those that don't really understand quantum, and again, I don't either. So just, I know enough to be dangerous about this. So again, take it with a grain of salt. It allows for multiple outcomes to be looked at or analyzed at the same time. So normally a computer would choose different outcomes binary. It's like a 1 or a 0. Quantum allows it to be both at the same time and go down all the rabbit holes much faster than if it's got to go 1 0 1 0 1 0 or 0 0 0 0 0 or 0 1 1 1 1. Like, it goes through a cascade of events, and it does it both of those pathways at the same time continuously to be able to find an outcome. And that's how it's able to get to solutions and find problems and crack codes much faster than a supercomputer can today. Roughing it. Hey, ma'am. She says, hi. Okay, so as long as the DTC goes live, you're pretty darn positive that XRP will have no choice but to be a higher price. So I don't think they can go live without XRP being a higher price. There's not enough liquidity. So there's always been this, I think I'm really the only one that's been on this side of the fence, to be honest with you. I think most everybody else is like, they'll flip a switch and they'll start using it, and that's what will drive demand. I don't see how they can do that. You can't use it at the current price, and demand from usage is only going to come once it's usable. So in my mind, they need to use a supply shock of some kind, similar to what they did in 2017, to be able to drive it to $3.84 in early 2018, on the current circumstances that exist. And in doing so, they would push it up to a value that then had enough liquidity for all of these things that have been built to start using it. So it's a supply shock, then usage. So in my mind, again, we'll see if I'm right or not. We will have a couple days to figure it out, and I'm sure people will be upset if it doesn't happen. And look, again, don't hold your breath. Okay, I'm not telling you to hold your breath or bet the barn on it or do anything silly. I think based on both Swift and DTCC are the same day, which is odd. And they've moved from 23 to 24.5. So again, predicated that they are going to utilize and move to T+0 to facilitate that. Other people are saying it's T+1. Okay, so if they stay T+1, they don't need it yet. But if they move to T0 in order to be able to facilitate real-time trading in 24.5, you would need XRP to be a higher price prior to them doing that. And I don't know how you could cause a supply shock on the weekend. You could do it on a Sunday, our time, if Japan needed it, which was interesting. The currency exchange and swap pair that Mike Higgins talked about on the podcast that he was on, he talked about the JPY and USD pair and leveraging XRP in the center of that. So could that be the deal potentially? Does that drive enough FOMO and demand that BlackRock launches their ETF on the 28th, or sorry, the 29th, the Monday, and then Evernorth goes live and everybody piles in before the 30th of this month to drive it to where it needs to be to start using it and save the stock market and everything else? Possible. Is that, an absolute certainty? Absolutely not. But based on what I'm seeing out there and the current circumstances in the market, it seems likely to me. And again, biased. I only hold XRP except for a couple $1,000 in hash. We manage a lot of XRP. I have a lot of bias toward that outcome. So just be aware of that. If you're listening to it, again, go listen to other people. Don't take my word for anything. Think critically through things. Go talk with professionals, and we'll see what ends up happening. We got it's Denise. It's me, Denise. Sorry, late for me. She says, Jake, when price appreciation starts, do you think it will be slow and boring but steady, or fast and freaking awesome? Waiting anxiously. I think the latter. I think that it will be extremely aggressive when we see this move to the upside. I think that it's going to be, they're going to need to do that to get it to the prices it needs to be in short order in order for them to be able to salvage the economy and our financial system. Ray Johnson again, he says, Dr. Beef or Mr. Cake, you pick. Last 3 lives, I left 3 super chats left before you appeared. Oh, well, that's why I didn't see them, Rick. I'm sorry. And I probably need to tell people this. If you post them before I show up, they don't show up in my feed, and I don't get them. So that's why I missed them. So I apologize. They did not get read. My 3 missed last week. I will be good. Only post after max headroom pops up. There you go. See? And I got this one. I got your other one. As long as you post them while I'm live here, I'll grab them. I am almost an hour in, so I'm not going to go to the bottom of the chat yet, but we are close to that. We got another one from Wager Rewards. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says the JPY is still at 162 even after the hike. Will the Bank of Japan act soon and drastic, like another 0.5% or 50 basis points, after seeing 0.25 or 25 basis points did literally nothing? What at the moment does JPY have to hit before they say enough is enough? Can they wait it out until the next meeting, or will they have to act sooner? I think they're going to have to act sooner. Their back is up against the wall. If we do see another spike in oil, which I do anticipate this week, once the people figure out that the oil reserves are super low, I think oil is going to go back the other way. Don't trade that. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you financial advice. This is my opinion. But if that were to occur, you would see inflation rear its head there in Japan again. You would see the yen continue to weaken against the dollar, and they would have no recourse left after the intervention today but to act and raise interest rates aggressively. They need to be at 1.5 or higher, so 50 basis points is what you're discussing there. I would put it at some of the projections that the people at the Bank of Japan have discussed. But that's also going to push their 10-year over 3%. It's going to push their other bonds up, which are also hitting all-time highs in recorded history. So, yeah, I do not see a way, and this is dangerous. I'm just going to say this. This is dangerous for me to say this. I personally don't see a way that they can make it to the next meeting or monetary meeting without coming out with an emergency something and acting. I really, they are backed into a corner here that they cannot get out of. So we still don't have the OCC giving guidance on stablecoins. I'm still waiting on that. That's supposed to be due by July 18th. We did have FinCEN, FDIC, and one other regulatory body come out with their guidelines for institutions around stablecoins. Their proposed guidelines, excuse me. They have a 60-day comment period on that. The regulator for stablecoins and who we need the oversight from is the OCC. We got that from the CFTC and the SEC on commodities and securities being tokenized. We now need that for stablecoins to be adopted at scale and be rolled out to be able to mitigate the risk of the bond market collapsing when the reverse carry trade unwinds. They've been very methodical up to this point of rolling things out prior to the need for them and making sure that everything's in place. So it would not surprise me to see the OCC come out sometime this week with their guidance around stablecoins. And if we get that, buckle up, Buttercup, because that's the last piece that I see that needs to be in place before things unwind here. Could they do it contingent on the unwind? Sure. But like I said, they've been very methodical. So I tend to believe that they're going to do that prior to allowing it to happen. Rick Johnson, again, he says, I am just a guy on the internet. I am just a guy on the internet. I'm just a guy on the radio. Rush Limbaugh. Great minds think alike. Love you guys. I'll take that. I like that comparison. I appreciate you, my man. We got another fantastic super chat. He's Apollo Jets. Good to see you, dude. He says, Jake, the GOAT. Happy Father's Day, my brother in Christ. Quick question on the firmware update on Decent. Do I do the update or just leave it be? I've heard not to do it. Got the wallet straight from the manufacturer. Please advise. I haven't ever seen an issue with Decent. I don't there. So this is a touchy subject that I need to stay away from. I think you're fine, personally. I don't see an issue with updating the firmware on Decent. So thank you for the super chat and the kind words, and appreciate all that you do for the community as well. Kale, Mr. Reeves, he says, Captain Legend. Thanks, dude. Please, thoughts on how Flare DeFi lending apps use USDTO, concerning if USDT thing goes down, if the DPEG effed, or would it actually benefit being able to buy the other at like 50 cents? I'm going to talk about something. This is not financial advice. All the disclaimers, everything that I said before. Okay. Actually, no, I'm going to give an example, and then you can kind of make the corollary. When Luna depegged, there was a negative feedback loop on that, and it continued to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. People would exchange it for Luna, swap it to another stable coin, swap it back to what was supposed to be pegged 1-to-1, get more of it, and then they continued to spiral it down. If you had, the problem with that one was a bunch of people had borrowed UST and then done something else with it, or held it in UST because it paid 20%. If you're holding it in it and it's spiraling down, that's not good. But if you had another stable coin, like you're pointing out here, it would be cheaper to pay it back if you had borrowed in that currency. So most people borrowed in Tether and then took that Tether and swapped it for UST. If people had borrowed in UST and swapped it for Tether the other way, and then it had spiraled down, they would have effectively been able to pay their loans back for zero and been able to keep all that other value in that DeFi protocol. So I don't know how that works for Flare. I don't know what they're doing with that stablecoin. I haven't looked into that. I don't know what the mechanisms or availability to borrow that is, but if you believed that that would depreciate against other stable coins and you weren't incentivized to hold that stable coin, you could swap it to something else that generated a small yield and wait for that to happen. You could effectively pay back that loan at half the value if it were 50 cents, like you mentioned. Again, not giving you financial advice. I'm just explaining how that works in the DeFi world, as you asked. The real Jaqueline, what's up, dude? He says, Mastermind member here. Post price appreciation, will members still only need a minimum of 1.1 to get in with DWP and Anchorage? Trying to plan. Thanks for all that you do. I think so. I think we could leave it there. Private client and all the other stuff will require more. But just for the wealth management, I think that's where we're going to be able to leave things.
It's Ethan.
Yes.
I know we've talked about this before. Jacqueline is a girl, like Aaron Jacqueline, you know.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
We met her at the Tennessee.
Well,
I remember.
All right. Well, my wife is correcting me as usual, so I'm sorry for the confusion. And I appreciate you being part of the group, and I will remember from now on, just like with Roughing It. After I've been embarrassed, I remember. So, yes, I do anticipate that we will be keeping it at 1.1. So just so you guys are aware why that matters, suitability, like I talked about earlier on, if you are accredited here in the US, you would meet that status at that amount. And for RAs, there's some other things that go along with that. So I do anticipate we could leave it there to be able to service everybody at scale, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that meet that qualification. We're working on ways to facilitate that. People that are already in the queue will likely take precedent. People that are already clients that need additional assistance or help with things will likely take precedent. And it's not to forego people that then qualify and are just immediately coming in. We're going to do our best to service everybody as this takes place. But we also have to, maintain our obligations and standards to those that have been clients for extended periods of time. So The answer is yes. All right, we are an hour in now. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here, and I'm going to work my way back up. No more super chats. So if you intend to do a super chat, do it right now. Because TikTok is being weird. I don't know what's going on over here with TikTok. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right. Working my way back up here. Live right, be kind. I like that. Cool name. He says, hey, Jake, I have a decent amount of XRP in a 401k IRA at iTrust. Do I need an LLC and a trust? Best to you and your family. Blessings, brother. Beyond Brick Mastermind. If it's already inside of an IRA, you do not. If you have some outside of that IRA, you might consider it for that. The IRA is, again, going to have beneficiaries on the account. When you pass away, God forbid that happens anytime soon, whoever ends up as a beneficiary on that account will get an inherited IRA. They can keep it in that IRA for 10 years. When they cash it out, they will receive those capital gains from the time that they received it, because they will get a step up in basis. So if they immediately cashed it out, which they could also take it out in kind, they would have a lot more flexibility. Assets inside of an IRA, you cannot margin, you cannot leverage. You said 401k IRA. So I don't know if you have a Roth or a solo 401k or a self-directed IRA. I'm not familiar with what a 401k IRA is. Those are normally two separate types of retirement wrappers. So I'd need a little bit more specification on what you exactly have to give you kind of a deeper outlook on what that would be. But as it sits, based on all your assets being in there, you would not require the other two things that you mentioned. Unless you wanted to set it up, if you were going to take distributions out of it and you wanted those to go into something. I don't know what your age is. Again, there's a lot of context there. I would talk to a financial advisor would be my recommendation. Are we there yet? 86 says, Big Jake, hope all is well. It looks like Supply Shop is loading up. Ripple has only sold 171 million into the market this month, still holding around 230 million, 100 million from last month. It's interesting that they've only sold that much onto the market this month. Well, let's think about this real quick. Let's say that they've tried to maintain 100 million in the OTC desk and dark pools, and that requires them to sell 300 million onto the market every month. If they had a shortfall of 130 million, because they always re-escrow 700 million. So we're going to say if they've sold 171, they would keep 129 on the math. And that would leave about 129 million XRP gap in the market if they it'd leave about a 29 million XRP gap in the market for the OTC desk and dark pools if they normally try to maintain around 100 million left over every month when they release the escrow and after they burn through it over that duration or 30-day period. So when would that run out? Probably be like a couple days before the end of the month that there would be no more left on the OTC desk and dark pools. And then all those people that were buying that XRP would have to go to the exchanges. And if there wasn't enough on the exchanges to quell whatever significant demand were happening at that time, it's exactly what you said. There would be a pretty significant supply shock that would cause there to be a significantly higher price for the asset. So very interesting that you point that out. Appreciate you bringing that to everybody's attention. Primal, Mr. Waits. They say, I have a 401k from an old job. Can I roll that over to an IRA in kind or otherwise with DAG? I'm already a client. It's either your company or I would add it to Franklin XRP ETF. We could work with you on it for sure. Or you could go the other way with Franklin. You would move it to a self-directed IRA If you no longer work for that corporation, you can roll it over at any time. If you're already a client with us and you'd like to manage it and have it, full scope portfolio, whoever your advisor is, I'd just reach out to them and say, hey, I got this 401k that I want to roll over. Is that something you guys can do for me? And I'm sure that they'd be willing to have a conversation and walk you through if we're the best fit for you or not. Can you guys see me over here on TikTok? Because I can't see what's going on. So I'm going to get off TikTok and jump back in here. Resume. All right, we'll see if that works or not. Okay, there we go. All right, I fixed it. KT Baby, hey ma'am, how are you? She says, RJ, Jake loves me way more. Go ahead and take a ride in the TARDIS, but check the tires first. Love y'all. Go XRP price appreciation. For those that don't know, her and Mr. Rick Johnson have some playful banter here on the lives. If you like playful banter, if you like cool people, we'd love to have you in the mastermind. We got a lot of that going on over there. It is at beyondbroke.com. You can use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, #1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. A lot of really good people, a lot of really good events, private deals, financial education, business resources, courses, you name it, we have it. It's a good spot to be, and we would love to have you in there. We already did this one, my man. I appreciate you in the super chat. We already did primal weights. I don't know why it moves me around in the chat sometimes. There's KT Baby again. Here we go. We got E-Rock. They say, how does the stock market recent performance impact the Japanese reverse carry trade? Wouldn't the current strong S&P performance delay the need? Let me think through that. So if the money that was due back was appreciating at a faster rate than the interest that was being accrued, or the gap that would happen if the currency were to go the other direction, currencies, then yes, it would be fine. Unfortunately, there are many indicators in the stock market that are starting to turn over. The RSI, the only thing that is currently on the up is the trend, and that looks like that's going to turn over soon as well. I thought that we might get to 78, 79,000 with the action that we've seen in the stock market to this point this week and Friday. I'm concerned that I might have been a bit aggressive with my targets. I think we may have already topped in the stock market. And again, this is not financial advice. Don't go out and just sell your stocks. Go talk to your financial advisor. They're going to tell you something different than me because they want you to stay invested, unless you talk to our group. All that being said, you never go broke taking profit, whether that's with XRP or traditional stocks or anything else you're invested in. So if you are close to retirement and you do have enough to retire, you might start the conversation about de-risking some of your portfolio with your financial advisor into longer-term bonds or annuities or things that are a bit more low risk versus significant equity exposure. So I don't know if that applies to you, but again, I can't give you financial advice. I can only tell you what I'm seeing in the market and some of the things I'm concerned about, and then you get to make your own choices. But really, as long as the yen continues to depreciate against the dollar, the carry trade is going to be fine. It's when it moves aggressively back the other direction, like we started to see this morning when they intervened in the stock market. If we go quickly from 162 to 150, or appreciate even faster than that, that's when everybody's going to yell fire. And then you're going to see everybody buying yen, which will continue to strengthen the yen. It's a positive feedback loop for them. It's going to be tons of yen moving back to their economy and people buying yen to be able to repay those loans, that will continue to drive the value of the yen higher against the other currencies that it normally trades with. And that, alongside the interest rates, the exchange rate between the currencies will also then not be favorable. And so that's why this is a precarious position, is because it's really kind of threefold. Okay. So the three pieces you have are the trading fees to exit your position. You're then going to go back into whatever currency was required to take that position. You're then going to have to swap that in the FX market and have to deal with the exchange and the exchange rate and the cost of that transaction in order to be able to repay that in yen to the Bank of Japan. Many people won't be able to make it back through because there's going to be so much volume moving, and that's why I think Ripple Prime is positioned in order to be able to help facilitate some of that. And then in addition to that, you got Berkshire Hathaway and the Fed both packing a bunch of yen on their balance sheet to be able to be lenders of last resort when that takes place. So if this wasn't going to unwind and it was already priced in and none of it was going to happen, why would the Fed be holding yen to be able to help bail people out when it does? Why would Berkshire Hathaway, that's holding hundreds of billions of dollars, enough money to buy everything but the top like 7 stocks in the S&P 500, be holding yen on their balance sheet? They might think it's going to appreciate. They're an investment company. They want to make money for their investors. That's fair. I'll take that. But they would make a lot more money if they lent it out and it was appreciating and people got to pay it back in yen. So, because they need that yen to go repay their loans over there to the Bank of Japan. Anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. All right, let's see here. Kingdom Connected, very cool name. Appreciate you being here. They say, could they, in a way, use AI over the weekend to reconcile each week's trading and make 24/5 trading without XRP? Like an accountant does at a bank each day, week, month. So that's the whole point, is that real-time trading wouldn't require reconciliation in one batch payment or multiple batch payments. And again, like, that would mean that Monday was T+5. That's not good, because you're going to stack up the whole week's trades before you execute those and settle with the DTCC. The clearinghouses are fronting all of that money. They've moved it down to T+1, so they're getting settled the next day right now. There's no way they're going to go back to getting that money 5 days later after the trading day on Monday. So I don't know if I'm explaining it in a way that's understandable or if that was the answer you were looking for. But I don't see how that's feasible. Now, if they utilized AI for the messaging, I mean, they already moved to ISO. You would need structured data where everybody was participating in the same way across the entire ecosystem. That would be a precursor to moving to instant settlement, because you don't want to have to reconcile all of that data. You could use AI to reconcile all that data real time. And if that's what you're talking about, sure, potentially. But there would still be some additional delay there if the data came across not in the right sections or there was some changes that need to be made. AI is fast, but it's not instant. So I don't, they have to use XRP. Wayne, oh man, he says, we got the XLM DTCC news a few weeks back. Are you expecting any similar news for XRP HBAR or any other utility coins anytime soon? Kermit drinking my tea. I think once we see the price move and them start using it, the roar of announcements that you're going to see for these digital assets is going to be earth-shattering. Anyone and everyone, people are going to come out of the woodwork announcing that they are working with Ripple and XRP and other people that settle in XRP. It's going to be deafening, the amount of partnerships and announcements and things that come out all at one time to drive FOMO and continue to push the price higher, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I think a lot of that's been orchestrated in the background for a long, long time. Over 1,700 NDAs with Ripple and other counterparties. So you can imagine how many announcements that would be if they were all, finally free to be able to discuss those things at once. So yeah, I think that there will be a lot of announcements around XRP in particular. And then HBAR and the other utility-driven tokens, I do think will also see their day in the sun in the latter part of 2026. Oh man, thank you again for the super chat. He says, I'm going to chime in on all this DTCC talk. The DTCC structured XRP and their patent to handle back-end settlement. Case in point, XRP will handle back-end settlement. Come on, keep up, people. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. That's it's pretty good. Live to give, Grandpa, dude, exceptional name. He says, Jake, Carbon One Mastermind, DWP on board since last December. You're building our future. Sometimes you're too much a gentleman for your own good. I'd tell the guy calling you a liar to pound sand. We got your back. I appreciate that. He's on here every week. He always gives good questions in super chat. I'm fine to take candid feedback from people. I don't take myself so serious that I need to be offended by anybody. Look, I come out here and I give you guys the real deal, what I think about stuff. And sometimes that other people don't agree with that. And they feel very strongly and they're opinionated about it. That's okay. Everybody is entitled to their own thesis, their own opinion. And I encourage people to go do exactly what he did, which is seek other sources of truth and then compare things and think critically through that. I think you could have asked a little nicer, but that's okay. Not everybody has kind candor. I think that that's a learned trait. If you've had to manage other people and deal with a lot of different relationships and navigate communicating with different counterparties and dealing with a lot of stress while you're doing that, you get better at throttling that in different conversations and different contexts as well. So again, I don't take offense to it. I've been called much worse. So thank you for having my back and all the kind words. Snow Caesar, Snow Czar, golly, not Caesar, says, Jake, influencers seem aligned on the result, but not the method. I would agree with your analysis. He says, please explain why the market will reprice XRP versus the BIS central bank pricing all at once. The possibility of each seems possible. I would agree. Again, I'm confident in my thesis because of other conversations and confirmations that I've had over the years. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, I'm with you. As long as the end result shows up, I think everybody's going to be happy anyway. I don't think people are going to care how we got there. And that's also part of my thesis. Like, I believe that the BIS will designate it a tier one asset, but I think it's going to be a high price when they do that. I don't know that them announcing that is going to be what drives that price or resets the price. And I think there'll be steps up. I don't think it'll be one giant leap to $100,000. I don't think they're ready for derivatives yet. I think they're going to do treasuries and then stocks and then other financial products and then commodities and all these other things will be tokenized. And derivatives, you have to tokenize the underlying assets before you can tokenize derivatives, because derivatives are secondary and tertiary and even further up the chain bets on or financial products structured on top of the underlying assets. Now, some assets, the underlying asset won't be what is tokenized or securitized because there's still additional frictions and incumbents that don't want that. So real estate being one of those examples. I don't think title companies are readily going to adopt tokenization of the underlying asset itself. I think that the securitized versions of real estate will likely be tokenized first. And then as different legislation is passed where digital titles hold weight in court or are the record of account in a legal sense, that will then, with some subsidies probably encourage all of these local courthouses and other places that hold titles and deeds to actually digitize them and then move them on chain. I think it's going to be a Herculean effort on that one. But there are other things that are already electronically traded, like stocks, that are much easier to be able to tokenize and bring on chain, because those titles and certificates have already been digitized long ago. So anyway, all that being said, I agree with the assessment on the BIS designating a tier one asset, but I think that there will be a supply shock that causes the price to get to where it needs to be for them to start using it, and then it will maintain a high stable price. Tracy, Miss Hayes, or Mr. Hayes, not sure. Like Tracy Atkins. It says, hi, newly joined subscriber. I am a single parent teacher with 3 children, 22, 19, and 16. I have built up to 1,000 XRP over time. My monthly net is only about 3 times that, so money is needed. Recommendations? I think you're doing great. You should be very proud. If you're in that situation and you're still taking care of children and you're a teacher, which God bless you for being a teacher. On here, my patience gets tried. I can't imagine, having children. I'm okay to deal with my son, but a whole classroom of children at any age, it takes a special person to do that. So thank you for what you do. I don't think teachers get enough credit for what they really do and how much they help people. And the salaries that we pay teachers are not great. I think that the whole educational system needs a complete reformation. I think that's going to happen. But yeah, for you to be in the position that you are, and if you're new here, in order to be able to have got the amount that you got, I think you're doing great. I think you just, keep doing what you're doing, and it'll all work out for you. God's smiling on you, and He's going to help you out. And again, I don't talk about my faith a whole lot, but I pray every day, and I feel like you do too, maybe. So appreciate you being here, and excited for you and your kiddos. We got Dungeon Dojo. They say, I know you're not giving financial advice. It always starts that way, and then the people ask me for financial advice. He says, but do you see this as a potential special week here? One should go harder to acquire more XRP. You should never over leverage yourself. You should never put yourself in a position where you can't make your rent or other expenses. This should be discretionary income or additional stuff that you do not need. Do not over leverage yourself. That is a poor investing mindset. If you have additional discretionary income and you feel that the market is in a good spot to be able to deploy that, sure. I cannot tell you what to do, but I would say it is a poor financial decision to over leverage yourself to the point where you can't meet your other obligations and wager that things are going to shift faster than a longer time horizon. Ideally, if you're investing, you should be over a 4-year time horizon until you need that capital back. And a lot of people just aren't even in that position. And I get that. And I do think, you heard me talk earlier. I do think things are going to happen sooner than later, but I would not encourage people to over leverage themselves. Jayhawk Nation, Rockhawk Jayhawk. I'll be up in Kansas City in September. You guys will get to see what that's about later on. He says, legend, can't wait to start the onboarding on the 28th. My adult children have their XRP on cold wallets. Do they have to set up their own DWP account, or can I structure things underneath me? If you're a private client, I'm sure that we could orchestrate something where it's underneath kind of a family umbrella. I know that we have other people that have set things up in a similar capacity. Are you a signer on their LLCs? Do you have authority on those? Do they have LLCs that hold the digital assets, or is it just them individually? There's a lot of different questions there. Be proactive. Go ahead and reach out to an advisor and say, hey, you know, our total family has this much XRP. I don't need to know what it is. I would like to see if there's a way to be able to orchestrate it where we can all utilize the services in the near term and over the long term. And I'm sure they would be willing to have that conversation and talk to you about how to structure that. Tired Man 02. He says, CBDC blocked, thoughts. So it's not blocked. There's a moratorium until 2030 on CBDCs issued by the Fed. So that's a caveat there. Could they issue a CBDC from the Treasury? The Genius Act, they blocked that. So the Fed could not issue a Treasury. The Fed could not issue a CBDC until 2030. That is only 4 years away. That's halfway through the next presidency, if we have another presidency. So cool. There's going to be some form of UBI. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but the balance of that and the ability for them to do it will be predicated on the output of AI and all of the additional advances we make in technology. Elon Musk the other day said that he believes that the global GDP, a conservative increase in global GDP, will be a 10x over the next 10 years. I think very similarly, I think GDP is going to be significantly greater. That's probably super conservative that it's a 10x over the next 10 years. People very often overestimate what can be accomplished in a year and significantly underestimate what can be accomplished in a decade or 10 years. So 4 years away, if the Fed's still around, they could absolutely issue a CBDC. But they could also leverage the stable coins that are currently out in the market to facilitate that as well. So they're all programmable. Scooby-Doo, one of my favorite cartoons, says, hey, Jake, what are your thoughts on AI agent trading increasing the burn rate due to the volume that AI will be able to use, be able to do versus human beings? If it becomes unsustainable, they will vote on amendments on the XRPL to be able to reduce the burn rate or cost for transactions on the network. And if that passed, it would be implemented and adopted. So there's a way to regulate that on the XRPL. As it sits today, it would be around for like 50,000 years at the current burn rate. That's a long time. So even if it bumped it up twice as much and it was 25,000 years, or 10 times as much and it was only around for 5,000 years, I mean, my trust is only set up for 1,000 years, so I think we'll be okay. But they could augment that and change it, to your point. Alex, he says, hey, Jake, I've been wondering what prevents XRP from becoming irrelevant inside Ripple's ecosystem if RLUSD and Rail can handle liquidity and payments. Good question. I actually put out a whole video on this if you want to go watch it. RLUSD versus XRP and why it's actually synergistic. So more liquidity moving on to the XRPL and more transactions happening is better for XRP. Other counterparties don't necessarily want to receive RLUSD. And to your point, Rail can issue other stable coins and other currencies or for different counterparties. They're incentivized to hold the treasuries to back those stable coins. So they're not going to want to hold somebody else's stable coin. So you're going to need some way to facilitate a decentralized exchange between the counterparties where it will route on the XRPL through the cheapest, fastest payment, oftentimes being XRP if there's enough liquidity in that, to be able to settle in the counterparty's currency that they want to receive with whatever you want to send. So I know a lot of people think they have it figured out with stable coins and that they're, you know, a bridge asset or a decentralized exchange is irrelevant. They don't understand Nostro Vostro accounts and how that currently works today. It would just exacerbate that problem. It would move from a $27 trillion problem to a $100 trillion problem and lock up more capital. It becomes even more inefficient without a decentralized exchange and a bridge asset to be able to facilitate that. So that is how the flywheel works. The more stablecoins that are issued on the XRPL, on the EVM sidechain, the more exchanges those have, the higher the price for XRP, and it sits between all of that. And the XRPL will route anything through the cheapest, fastest pathway to get it to the counterparty. Michael Pitchford, he says, Jake, blessings and two things. Okay, appreciate you, man. He says, the High Queen of Tea has not favored you with a mug yet. She got me the XRP blinged out Yeti. Pretty cool. One of our mastermind members made that actually. Shout out, you know who you are. Appreciate you. He says, everything okay? Second, does Tether depeg in 2026? I don't know that it depegs. I do think that it will get delisted. And I do think that there's a potential for sanctions on Tether. And there's a couple different reasons for that. But I spoke with Ryan O'Neill. I don't know. He's a developer at Ripple. I swear that's his name. And Scams. You guys know I have a bet with Scams for $750 XRP by the end of the year, which he's going to owe me this year. I'm not going to lose 2 years in a row. I got into a debate with him after I first put out the domino theory. And I thought Tether would depeg. And they gave a lot of reasons why it wouldn't. And in that conversation, the gentleman that worked at Ripple actually came out and said, well, you know, the way that this could work would be it gets sanctioned. And I hadn't even considered that as a viable path forward until he mentioned it. But he works at Ripple. And Scams also validated that. He was like, well, if it got sanctioned, then yeah, it would cause problems. I was like, oh, okay. So if you know, again, I don't have to agree with everybody. I don't have to like everybody, but I can learn things from everybody. And that conversation was enlightening for me. It was kind of an epiphany. So I don't know that it will depeg, but I think you will see delisting July 1st for sure, because of MiCA and the standards that are there in the EU. And then separate of that, there's a potential that it could get sanctioned based on other conversations that I've had here in 2026. Key to the City says, I just want to hear you say it again. Tell me that it's going to be a hot girl summer, courtesy of XRP, and tell me why. Music to my ears. Keep up the good work. I do think that it's going to be a hot girl summer for XRP. I think that it's going to garner a lot of attention in very short order and be, bright. And yeah, I think that. And I said that the other day. I was talking to one of our estate planners, and I said hot girl. Actually, I was talking to both of them that are kind of our elite architects on the estate stuff. And I said, it's going to be a hot girl summer. And they said, what? And I was like, you know, like a spring break, like awesome, you know, fun. And they were like, never heard that before. You Texas people are weird. I was like, okay, maybe I'm young, but I don't even think I'm yet that young and hip, you know, 6'7" and all the other. My son came down earlier. It was yesterday, and he said, "Respect the drip." They had some different clothes on. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm not cool. I don't understand all the lingo these kids have these days. But I do think that it is going to be a really nice summer for XRP. A couple more super chats here. Mr. Johnson again said, Grandmaster Yoda, a sweetheart to the tea lady. Denim, the denim she wears. My wife is a cowgirl, and she likes Ariat. It's normally what she wears, or Wrangler. What's the other ones? I'm drawing a blank right now. She always goes to the Goodwill, and she finds like really good deals at the Goodwill. It starts with an M. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now for whatever reason. Thank you for the super chat, and good question. Respect the truth. Yeah. Collins says, hey Jake, 27 from Australia, currently holding 5 figures in XRP. Just want to say thank you for providing me with enough knowledge to bring freedom to my family. That's cool, dude. Thank you for the kind words from down under. I would like to go to Australia. Would love to go see Sydney and the Golden Coast there, and snorkel the Great Barrier Reef. That's on the bucket list for me. So, and maybe even open an office there in Australia. I will tell you what, though, like the tax laws that they are rolling out on you guys is rough. They're going to be taxing people on unrealized gains. They're going to be penetrating trusts and things. Like, it's becoming very contentious there for anybody that has money in Australia. I don't understand why they would force people with the money to pay the taxes out of the country there. But that seems to be what they're doing. So, God bless you and your family. Wish you the best, and thank you for the kind words, and hopefully get to work with you in the not too distant future. Wager rewards again. He says the super I asked earlier about the BIS, that wasn't my definition. It was the exact definition listed for Tier 1 assets pulled from the BIS website. Okay, well, I would still challenge you. How does gold meet that definition? Because gold is a Tier 1 asset designated by the BIS. So, and again, I would challenge and say if gold can be designated a Tier 1 asset, it's what do you call the marker that it trades under? Having brain farts tonight, I'm sorry. It's XAU. I know what it is, but like there's also reasons that XLM and XRP have an X in front of them. It's non-denominational, or it basically means that it's sovereign. There is no country that controls it. And again, you said, what was the term that was used? Common equity. That would be the term in there that I think gold would qualify under, and XRP would also be able to qualify under. And again, it's cool if you pull it off their website. I'm just telling you, gold is also a Tier 1 asset, and that's since 2019. And it didn't meet the definition that you provided off of their website, unless that other piece is accurate and meets that qualification. Josh Hagan says, legend. What's up, dude? Happy Father's Day, brother. Thank you, man. Happy Father's Day to you, if you are a father. Proud member of the mastermind. Carbon One just signed up LLC over the weekend. Awesome. Jaime from your office. Appreciate all that you do for us. Awesome, dude. Glad to be working with you. Appreciate you being part of the mastermind. Again, if you want to join the mastermind, we would love to have you guys in there. All you got to do is go over to beyondbroke.com and use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2, month to month, no contract. 17,000 people continue to stay around because of the value we provide in that community. So go check it out. Again, on the other side of the $10 XRP, cutting it off, it will be invite only and much, much more expensive. This is another, you've had a lot of good questions tonight. Wager Reward says, what's your take on Vendel's comment about being very confident that Warsh will reduce rates to 0? Is that actually realistically possible? I think in order to be able to generate the V-shaped recovery that, and once the reverse carry trade is unwound, there's no need for us to be able to hold interest rates high. I would challenge that to the aspect, Bank of America came out within the last 24 hours and said that they expect 3 rate hikes this year. A healthy, sustainable economy can maintain 5 to 6% interest rates. If there's enough growth in GDP, you can maintain those type of interest rates. It's when growth slows down that you need to incentivize spending in the economy. And with the amount of AI and blockchain and progressive technology that's extremely deflationary, lowering interest rates would be inflationary. So you have 2 different levers that you can pull for inflation. You can lower interest rates to incentivize spending and borrowing in the economy and kind of drive the velocity of money, or you can print more money, right? Warsh said that he wants to take money out of the economy, reduce the M2 money supply, and lower interest rates to be able to kind of counterbalance that. I think it's possible. I don't know why he would go all the way to 0. I don't know that that's required in order to be able to get the outcome that we're looking for with the deflationary effect that we're going to see from the technological advancements that are going to happen. But if he were to reduce M2 money supply significantly, like drastically, it may require reducing interest rates to that amount until we started to see the significant growth in the economy that we're looking for. He could then hike rates into that growth to be able to stabilize things. So it's possible. That's what you asked for. It is realistically possible under certain circumstances if they were to reduce M2 money supply drastically. We got Lance, Mr. Dixon. He says, I seen today. Sounds like my buddy Future from the Mastermind. He says, Japan's prime minister was calling the U.S., meaning they're needing to do something. It's getting real. Blessings. Yeah, I heard that they were talking to Besson. So I'm with you. We got oil continue to hang out around 12,000 and very flat over here on the JPY versus the USD, hanging out at 161.5 and just trading right along this ridge here. I think it's going to take oil spiking to really break the camel's back. Made Man MCG says, I've listened to The Strangest Secret every day for 3 years. Bob Proctor. Tip, if you could listen to one motivational thing daily, what would it be? Oh, Mick Ripple. Good to see you, dude. One motivational thing daily. Probably Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. If I had to pick one, I like Earl Nightingale stuff. Jim Rohn, both of them I've passed on, but both are prolific, fantastic speakers. Les Brown is great. Tony Robbins, everybody likes Tony. Tony does a good job too. But yeah, if I had to pick one, it would either be Napoleon Hill or Earl Nightingale. And if you've never heard of those people, I would encourage you to go look them up. They are some of the best motivational speakers of all time. And they definitely understood the power of the mind and how you can use that in your favor to change your reality. Believe in that wholeheartedly. Sitting Bear says, appreciate you. Wondering why Flare isn't our first pick for XRP yield. Scared for price appreciation, AUM fees. Who said it isn't? Sitting Bear. Who said that Flare's not on the list? Asia says, your wife is the best. That accent. Listen, I can't go look up all these darn super chats. Yeah, she doesn't pull any punches. Shepard says, "Hey Jake, I just want to give you a shout out. Easy XRPZ. He's a sharp guy with a new YouTube channel that has a passion for XRP and is a fan of yours as well. He's in the chat now. That's it. Thanks for all that you do. Awesome, dude. Shout out. Go check him out. Go follow him over there on YouTube. See what his content's about. It is easy XRPZ. I'm gonna have to go check him out after we jump off here. Thank you for letting me know. And yeah, but look, here's the deal for me. So, you know, I am blown away that so many people care what I have to say. I don't think I'm anybody special. I remember when I first started the YouTube channel over 3 years ago. Really, so I started making videos in 2020 on Facebook each morning. I would just do like a 5 to 6 minute video. Nobody cared. Nobody listened to my stuff. I got on, you know, a lot of people make videos every single day. So like Molly and Lewis and Zach and, you know, Black Swan Capitalist, and a lot of other people were very gracious early on to have me on their channel and allow me to talk about, you know, mitigating taxes and structuring your estate and how that worked with XRP and my thoughts around how things were going to play out. So I love to help other people, especially when they're getting started, because not a whole lot of people, you know, give you a leg up, and they were nice enough to do it for me. And so happy to do it for other people as well. So again, easy XRPZ, go check him out. I'm sure that he's got some good stuff over there on his YouTube channel as well. We already did that one. I think I got through all the super chats. I'm gonna go all the way to the bottom. Showing your age. That's okay. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. We got Kyle. Mr. Smith, they say, I have sufficient amount of XRP, but I'm currently, at the current market price, it's not enough to work with your company. What's your advice on protecting my investment, and would it be possible to go ahead and set up a trust LLC? Yeah, you for sure can. I just look like I look at things through cost of benefit. So if you don't have at least $50,000 to $80,000 in current portfolio value, I don't know that it. I think your money would be better spent, personally, on just continue to buy more and you know, wait for price appreciation to structure things. And the reason behind that is, let's say you have 50,000 XRP and it goes to $1,000. Beautiful scenario, like best thing that you could possibly imagine. You have 50 mil. You could set up an LLC. You're going to move it in there at the cost basis. You're going to get a 409A valuation done in that LLC. You're going to set it up as a single member. You're going to gift a little bit of equity to other people. You could do $18,000 worth of equity apiece. Now you have minority owners on the cap table. And let's say you gift, you know, 4 or 5 people that you want to take care of. When you get the 409A valuation done, you're going to get a reduction because the marketability and sellability of that LLC is going to be significantly less. Even though the assets in it are worth 50 million, somebody wouldn't be willing to pay 50 million for it because it's got minority owners on the cap table that they're going to have to deal with. So you're going to get a reduction of somewhere between 25 and 30%. Now that valuation is going to be closer to $30 million. Even though the assets are still worth 50, you could be able to gift that full amount out of your taxable estate into the trust. And most people aren't going to gift the full amount. They're going to keep a portion of it in their estate and be able to manage it and have control and do other things, where the long-term bag and other things might go into the larger trust. So, and you'd still be able to borrow against the stuff in the trust. You'd still be able to do other stuff with it based on the contingencies that you set up and your trust protector and your distribution trustee and the other stuff. So all that being said, that's kind of further down the road. If you have at least that much, sure. Setting up a living trust, revocable trust, those are the same thing, and an LLC for the creditor protection. I think that those are great options for people that, you know, have enough to kind of justify that. And again, you may want to be proactive and do it with 20,000 XRP. We won't stop you. We'll just say, hey, like, you might do better if you just bought more of the crypto versus this, but we'll help you do whatever you want to do. if somebody had one XRP and they wanted to set stuff up and spend the money on it, we would help them. I would kind of feel weird about that though. You know, I don't like selling people anything that they don't actually need, I guess is what I would say. Suitability thing, right? We talked about that. That's one of the requirements that we have as a fiduciary and an SEC registered RIA. Tim Wieland, he says, legend. What's up, dude? Just a quick apology to DFW Mike. The man is amazing, extremely helpful, and I accidentally called helpful him DWP in Discord and his wife at him. I accidentally called. Not sure, but he apologizes, DFW Mike. So thank you for the kind words and super chat, and I'm sure that they understand your apology and would take it. Jake Hooten says, miss you. Not sure what that means, Jake, but I miss you too. We got King Kapua. They say, did you already get OCC guidance? So we did not. And I actually kind of, we talked about this on the town hall in the mastermind. We did not get OCC guidance. We got, we have a 60-day comment period for the FDIC, the FinCEN, and one other regulatory body for their proposed guidance. So it was not guidance from the OCC that was issued on the 18th. But you know, we will see, you know, all of those regulatory bodies aligned within the next 60 days. Oh boy. Paul, he says, Crypto Aries says the Bank of Japan has already factored in the rate hikes into the equation. The carry trade is not going to be a controlled unwind and not cause chaos. Your claim will happen. Is she wrong? Again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. She does live there in Japan, right? She's closer to the ground there. I'm here in the US, so I'm closer to the ground here. A lot of the people that have borrowed yen are foreign people. They are not located there in Japan. So I just think we have, you know, different experiences. And we talk to different people and we see different outcomes, and that's okay. You're doing exactly what I said, which is go listen to other people, take their opinion on stuff, and then you get to think critically through things and make your own thesis. So I appreciate that you're watching other people and brought the question here. I'm aware that that is how she feels. We differ on a lot of different things. And again, that is okay. There's a lot of, we all see the same outcome. And I think we're all helping people get there in our own way, which is good. All right, I'm going to take two more and then we're going to wrap it up tonight. Actually, I think I already did that one. So unless I got any more, here we go. Kurt, my man, good to see you, dude. He says, watching things come to fruition over the years has been amazing. We are here in Seoul, and XRP just happens to do well in Water Zodiacs. Thank you for everything, Megazord. If you guys don't know what the Megazord is, I would encourage you. The super chat. If you guys didn't see the 625 here on the super chat, maybe that's a nod or a wink from Kurt there to a certain date. Appreciate you, my man. We've got Seymour, and I think this will be the last one. It says, June 28th to June 29th is exactly 5.89 months into the year. Buckle up. Is there a there? I don't know. 589 is an interesting pattern that continues to repeat. So with that, I'm going to wrap it. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Again, if you want to join the mastermind, we would love to see you in there. All you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. If you want to work with us to form your LLC and structure your trust and do all that, all you got to do is go over to app.digitalascensiongroup.com. And all of that will be laid out there for you. If you want to talk to somebody, you can go over to digitalfamilyoffice.io. And then last but not least, if you want to work with us on the wealth management side, that is digitalwealthpartners.net. And as you can see, we're going through the rebrand. This will all become much cleaner in the not too distant future, and all be under one umbrella, and we'll make it super easy for you guys to find things. So appreciate you. Thank you for taking time out of your Monday. I hope you'll have a wonderful week. We'll see you Wednesday night. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.